members of the head table, participants of the Cultural Public Citizen Diplomats course, invited guests. Thanks for being here. I just want to share with you a reflection that I share with my students when I started the program. And this is what I said. Governments are proving incapable of providing protection for the lives and safety of citizens in the Americas and around the world. Persisting high unemployment, poverty wages, corruption, frequent financial and economic crises, robotization of workplaces, deepening inequality, multiple manifestations of discrimination, resurgence of ethnic nationalism in the global north and south, particularly in America and Europe, global warming, internet abuse, fake news, cyber wars, and the increasing loss of individual privacy. Polarization. People in Guyanese language don't want to talk with each other. Civil wars stoked by external interests and countries themselves within countries. Domestic and international terrorism and the fear of nuclear war characterize our time. Sounds very frightening, doesn't it? But the truth is, all these challenges or problems that exist are real and they are in the world. And one of the part of this program, an essential part of citizen diplomacy, is that we are advancing the concept of local global. What is local is global. What is local is global. They're like two sides of the same coin. In Guyanese language, they're like suru and duru. One organization that recognizes the role of education diplomacy is the Association of Childhood Education. They are dedicating a special issue of childhood education innovations to focus exclusively on education diplomacy. They underline that they intend to showcase education diplomacy approaches that inspire educators to build bridges across education divides and solve education challenges at the local, national, regional, and global areas. Educators around the world must acquire new sets of skills that go beyond traditional education, leadership, and advocacy. Education diplomacy borrows skills from the conventional diplomacy, but use these diplomatic skills to help educators bridge divides in education, respond to education challenges, and build relationships and approaches that collaboratively and positively influence the direction of education in the 21st century and beyond. Education diplomacy is essential to the implementation of the 2030 United Nations Global Development Agenda. Additionally, this organization that sponsors these programs believe that this new diplomacy will use the techniques of diplomacy that include creating partnerships, building consensus, negotiating agreements, mediating conflicts, reaching compromises, forming coalitions and alliances, collaborative problem solving, and strategic communications, trend analysis, and future forecasting. So you see what we are doing today with the teachers, citizen diplomacy goes into the area of education also. One person, for example, the president of Global Ties in the United States says that the work of citizen diplomacy community is not just a nice thing to do. Its repercussions have far-reaching implications. Future global prosperity, peace, and stability are dependent upon increased international cooperation, collaboration, and mutual understanding. And I'd like to share with you just another quick reflection that the United States of America, I know we all think of migrating there very often, some of us live there, and countries around the world since the 19th century developed and implemented strategies for cultural representation at world exhibitions. So that's how it started, the whole idea that nations around the world will have exhibitions and show off or showcase what they have from their country. Regardless of the profile of a country, rich or poor, small or large, powerful or powerless, ambassadors and embassies are expected to familiarize leaderships and citizens abroad with their aesthetic traditions and practices. In the dark days of segregation in the United States government, and that's when African American people were segregated, they used the cultural assets of African Americans like jazz and blues as an integral part of their public diplomacy. So when they go to Europe, they don't talk about the racism in America, they talk about jazz and blues. I'm very interested. The US government pursued the objective of projecting the best of America as fundamental to its image and improving its relations with other nations. Other nations do the same. Liberians enjoyed the publicity in a global survey showed that among the nations of the entire planet, the citizens of that country are the most helpful to their neighbors. Can you believe that? Liberia is a country that had child soldiers and civil war for many years. But what they have as an asset is that they help their neighbors. Isn't that something? So we have globalization, counterterrorism, and an emerging multi-centered world. Today we don't only hear about America, we have China, India, Russia, Turkey, and so forth. The world is moving into a multi-centered kind of world. Government, private sectors, and civil organizations are involved in cultural public diplomacy. Increasingly, we witness the importance given to cross-cultural communication, often referred to as intercultural communication. The Chinese co-sponsor in the US the establishment of Confucian Institute. This is very interesting about China. China has a communist government, and they advocate Marxism, Leninism. But when they come out of China, they tell the world about Confucianism. Because Confucius was a philosopher that believed in tradition and other values. But these are how nation states work. Ambassador, of course, was in China, so he knows more than this about that than I do. Chinese co-sponsor the establishment of Confucian Institute, while other countries have cultural centers. And here we know the Indians have a culture and so forth. I read those parts and I reflected a bit, because some of our guests might want to know, what is this citizen diplomacy about and how is it relevant to Guyana? So I like to make things simple, and I'm going to give you an example. In 1971, the most powerful country on earth, the United States, and the most populous country on earth, China, would not speak to each other. Because China had a communist revolution in 1949, and for 25 years they prohibited their citizens from talking with each other. Can you believe it? But this was a reality. So what happened? A group of American ping pong players, young people dressed like hippies, went to Hong Kong to play ping pong. And a young American decided that he will go over to the bus where the other ping pong players from China were. And he gave them a gift. And the leader of that ping pong team reciprocated and gave him a gift. When Mao Zedong, the president of China, heard about it, he decided that that was good diplomacy. And he invited that ping pong team to go to Beijing and play ping pong. Do you know what happened afterwards? Within 1 year, the Secretary of State, Kissinger, was in Beijing playing ping pong with Chu Enlai, the Secretary of Foreign Affairs for China. And that was the beginning of the relationship. And a year afterwards, President Nixon went to China. and China and the United States begun to have relations, exchange ambassadors and so forth. But for us Guyanese, there is something wonderful about this experience. Here is the group of ping pong players. And do you know who this gentleman is? He's a Guyanese. He was one of the ping pong players. He was a green card holder, an immigrant, and his name is Brathwaite. And he was working in the UN, and he was one of the players. So we have a pioneer citizen diplomat here, Guyanese. I'll pass it around and you all see. Years afterwards, he was invited in the 2014 to go to the Nixon Center in California to play ping pong. So that is what we mean by citizen diplomacy. And there are many more examples, and as the program proceeds, I will refer to young people and a lot of folks that do citizen diplomacy. And you know, this program of citizen diplomacy here has been sponsored by the Roraima Institute, which is a Guyanese think tank that some of us have set up in the US, but we have been doing some work here in Guyana. The president of that institute is Mr. Floyd Haynes. So without further ado, I will ask Mr. Haynes to share with us some of his thoughts.
Participants, invited guests, members of the Roraima Institute, head of the Diaspora Unit, Honorable Ambassador, welcome you all to this special occasion of the graduation of the first group of Guyanese to participate in the Citizen Diploma program. It couldn't have come at a better time. If you look around the world and you see what is happening, what we are witnessing is the end result of a breakdown in diplomacy. You look at what's happening in the Ukraine, you look at the political divide in America, Brexit, the rise of populism, all of it can perhaps be traced back to a breakdown in diplomacy. And so diplomacy is at the heart of what keeps the society together and keeps it going. We decided to bring this to Guyana because if Guyana is to transform and develop, it has to develop its human capital. And the development of human capital starts with you, the teachers, the educators. There is going to be no development, there can be no development of human capital without the teachers, the educators. And once we develop that human capital, then we can begin to think about transforming and developing the nation. The nation is not going to go anywhere without it. Several years ago, Paul Tennessee and I decided to start the Roraima Institute. We met on the campus of the University of the District of Columbia, and we were talking about Guyana, and we realized that we both had a passion. And that passion was Guyana. Love of country, and the need to be part of that transformation. And we looked at several different ways in which we can participate in that transformation and development. And we agreed that perhaps helping to shape policy development, policy formation, implementation is the best way we can do it. And so we decided to form the Roraima Institute. And as Paul would say, policy, not politics, right? We're a non-political organization dedicated to developing, formulating, participating, and implementing of policies that can be part of the transformation of this country that we all love. And that's why we're here. And so I want to thank all of you for participating in this program. I was fortunate to be one of the lecturers in the early stages, so I would have met you all on Zoom. I don't even remember what my topic was, but oil, right? Yeah. I'm not an oil expert. But yeah, so I enjoyed it, and I wasn't able to do some of the others. But once again, thank you all for coming here. Paul dreamed of this thing up. He was doing it since 2006. We've gone to a few of them at the university, and so it's very special for us to be part of this. We at the Roraima Institute have decided that we're going to give Mr. Paul Tennessee a small token of our appreciation for his hard work and dedication. Yes. He's been a soldier and has certainly been a yeoman in the development of the Institute. So with that said, I'll turn it back over to Paul and hope you get a chance to meet him.
Well, I didn't do no lengthy introduction of Floyd, but you all have been reading the newspaper. Mr. Haynes is a very humble person, one of the humble Guyanese I've met. He heads a company abroad. It's Haynes Incorporated. It's a well-established company. But here in Guyana, he's a CPA, an accountancy firm. But also, he is about soon, I think in July, Floyd, to open the merchant bank in Guyana. Merchant bank. So this is an example of Guyanese abroad coming back and making a contribution. But Floyd also studied at Harvard and Oxford, but he likes to give back. He teaches part-time sometimes at the University of District of Columbia. And what he didn't tell you, when we met, I met him for the first time. I was surprised because I didn't know him before. He's in the business school. And we were having a glass of wine, and I said, Floyd, you know I do a lot of forums in the university. I want to have a forum on Guyana's 50th anniversary. So he said, okay. I said, I'd like you to be on the forum. And then I said, but you know, it might have been a better idea if we could have a conference. He said, so why are you not having it? I said, that costs money. He said, you don't worry with the money, I'll take care of that. So I said, man, but I'm very busy teaching. I need someone to do the footwork. I could convoke people, I could oversee it. He said, don't worry, I'll name a consultant. And that was how we started a conference for Guyana's 50th anniversary. And we convoked 85 folks from all over North America who came and presented papers. So then Floyd says, well, what do we do now? I said, well, we listen to the Guyanese abroad. Let's go home and listen to them at home. So with the consultant from Floyd's company, we went to 5 regions and we did something called listening interviews. And we produced a document, and right here in Carol Lodge, we presented it. So that is the story. Floyd, I like his story. He's a story where he grew up in Campbellville.
Yes.
I went one semester, one term in Campbellville, when Fitty Miller was a teacher, because mother had a shop in San Bob Street. But he remembers the yard. He speaks of the yard, and he hasn't forgotten that. So even though he has been very successful, he has not forgotten his roots, and that is why he's here. You also will read in the newspaper, might have already read, that his accountancy firm obtained, this is going to be quite a story in the coming days, obtained the job to audit, how do I say it, right? The Exxon. You're going to audit what?
Audit the costs.
He's going to audit their costs.
Cost recovery.
So God help Floyd when he issues that report, because you know where I mean. But the important thing is that you all have to pay attention to these things. All this is part of you becoming more knowledgeable. So we are very fortunate in the Institute to have Floyd with us and to be helping us to contribute. We have done a number of things. The head of University of Guyana in Tain, we did a workshop on transformational leadership at your campus. We were very happy about that. We had another event here on entrepreneurship on leadership here at Carol Lodge and at the hotel. So little by little we've been trying to do a number of programs. So without further ado now, I will call on Maya Nanda to share with us a few remarks on behalf of our fellow student participants.
Good evening, everyone. Master of Ceremony, President Haynes and Vice President Leonard of the Roraima Institute, Ambassador Karen and Mr. Smith. I am happy to share a few remarks about the course we pursued. We began this course in 2021. We study both academic and burning issues and technical subjects. After today, we will implement community projects. The academic subjects included analysis of the Burmese slave rebellion, the biology of COVID, the oil and gas industry, education, citizens diplomacy, local global governance, United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, climate change, public safety and justice, and also the biology of COVID, race. We were also trained in the following technical subjects: techniques in creating a community focus group, revision of a toolkit for a citizen diplomat strategy, networking and coalition building, identification of projects and implementation. We completed this course both online and 2 face-to-face workshops. Today, when we graduate from this course, we are committed as citizens diplomat to implement a project in our community to build bridges within and between our family members and communities. I would like to say that my fellow participants consistently demonstrated interest and commitment and also ownership of the course. We are very pleased that the Roraima Institute made it possible for us to take advantage of this opportunity. My colleagues and I are absolutely sure that the training we obtain in this course would benefit us and our community. Thank you.
Nanda. Now it's my pleasure to introduce a friend and brother, a former ambassador of Guyana to China, to Venezuela, and to the United States of America. Ambassador Beni Karan, retired.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Paul. Mr. President of the Roraima Institute, Vice President, university professors, teachers, distinguished invitees, Rosalinda Rasul, head of the Diaspora Unit, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, ladies and gentlemen, most important of all, students. Good evening. I'm very happy to be here. This is very heartwarming event to be a part of, because Guyana needs diplomats. Guyana needs as many of its fine young minds as possible to be engaged in diplomacy. It's a very important thing. And we have a lot of talent that needs to be developed, because the nature of diplomacy is such that, that a country like Guyana needs to engage its human resources. Now, if I were to ask you, by the way, Paul, I know you told me to be brief, so I'm going to be very brief. So don't worry, right? If I were to ask you, what is the biggest blot, the biggest stain on Guyana's name ever? Well, you know, different people might have a different answer, but right up there, ranking right up there, would be the Jonestown killings and suicides of 1978. So, now, why did Jim Jones come to Guyana? Again, many reasons, but one of the reasons, and a lot of people have forgotten this, in the 1970s, the greatest threat to global security was the risk of nuclear war between the United States and the country now known as Russia, then known as the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Back then, if you ask people about rising seas and climate change, you ask them about food security, which are the more prevalent issues today, those issues did not exist. So Jim Jones was afraid of the fallout of nuclear war. And the scientists at the time, when they calculated if there was a nuclear holocaust, what would be one of the safest places in the world to go to, they arrived at the jungles of Guyana. I'm not too sure what the reasons are. I don't know if it's the wind factor with the radioactivity or what it was, but it's supposed you had a better chance of survival if you came to the jungles in that area. And that's one of the, there must have been other reasons, but that's one of the main reasons that Jim Jones chose Guyana. So why I'm bringing this up is to highlight to you that you can draw a direct line, you can connect the dots directly from a global security threat to something that had such a devastating impact on this country. It's not apparent, but it's there. So this is the point that Paul was making, from global to local. And this is something you have to focus on as a potential diplomat or as a budding diplomat going forward. Don't believe that the Ukraine war doesn't have anything to do with you. Middle East peace, whatever the issue is, they all come back home at some point. The second lesson that you can draw from Jonestown is, and I mentioned it already, the evolving nature of diplomacy. Now, 50 years ago, in 1978, the main threat was nuclear war. So in my lifetime, and in Paul's lifetime, Paul is about 125 years old. The security threat has evolved. So in your lifetime, you can expect that the nature of multidimensional security also will have evolved, and probably rising seas and climate change may not be the issue, it may be another issue. So this is something, again, as a young diplomat, you need to evolve with the issue. Now, my training is as a lawyer. I practiced law before I went to the Foreign Service. And if you're preparing a legal case to argue, you have to read hundreds of pages, maybe thousands of pages, to be able to present your case properly before the judge. And I hated it. I really, really did not like legal research. So when I got a job as a diplomat, I said, wow, yeah, finally. But guess what? When I became a diplomat, I found that I had to read more. No joke. So you have, what I'm trying to say to you is you have to be informed. You have to be informed, because if you're not informed, you are unable to contribute to the discussion. So nowadays it's not just reading, you have devices, you have a lot of audiovisual means of getting information, but you have to be very, very diligent about getting all the available information and being able to present it in an effective manner. So one last thing I would like to say to you is that there are the grounds of international cooperation, the bases of international cooperation in the diplomatic field in this hemisphere rests mostly on three key pillars. They are multidimensional security, democracy, and development. And just as there's an interconnectedness between nuclear war and Jonestown, there's an interconnectedness among those three. As long as there's an absence of one, it impacts on the other. We've had a big debate in this country about democracy with the last elections, and at the heart of that debate is what would have been the consequences to the development of the country. Without democracy, it impinges on development and with security as well. So you need to focus on those key areas, I think, going forward, and be aware of the interplay between them. Ensure that you're permanently informed of the burning issues of the time, ask the relevant questions, propose and lobby for the most effective and humane public policies. So I just wanted to make these few very brief points because of this is the oath you've taken. I think it's relevant. One last point, as Guyanese, you have to be very thoroughly informed of the question of border security. The Venezuelan claim and the Surinamese claim are issues that everyone needs to be very, very informed about. The Venezuelans have done a much better job of informing their populace about their side of the story, which is really a joke. Really. We have not done as good a job as they have, and it is very, very important that young people in there be aware of what the issue is, what those issues are. It might seem far removed, it might seem that it's something we can always win at the end of the day. It's a very dangerous situation. It's something that everybody needs to be mobilized about, be prepared for, and be prepared to advocate about. So with those few remarks, I want to congratulate the Institute. This is a very worthwhile endeavor. I'm very happy to associate with it, with the whole exercise. We used to do this back in DC, and it's really encouraging to see it brought home here to Guyana now. I want to congratulate Floyd and Paul for sticking to this. And I want to congratulate you, the students. Diplomacy is a field that is very interesting, it's very rewarding, it's very exciting, and I wish you the very best in your future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you. Ambassadors, thank you very much. You speak of Jonestown. I happen to have had a tape, but I lost it. When Jim Jones' back was against the wall, and he desperately was trying to find a place to go to, he was thinking of Brazil and Russia. So he was thinking of going to the Soviet Union, which was, Russia, but it was communist. So he invited somebody from the Russian embassy to come, go down to Jonestown. And I had this tape where Jim Jones keep haranguing his people all night. Don't call me comrade, don't call me father, call me comrade. Don't call me father, call me comrade. Because he was trying to negotiate to go to the Soviet Union, and they're communists and they call each other comrade. But really what he had those people doing is calling him father. Anyhow, that's a little bit of thing. But I'm so unhappy that I lost that tape. So my friends, I want to give you another example very quickly of a citizen diplomat. There is a young lady by the name of Greta Thunberg. She's from Sweden. And what she did at the age of 12 years old, she went and protested in front of the Foreign Office and the offices, the government offices in Sweden, protesting, the Swedish Parliament rather, protesting about climate change. Protesting about climate change. You know, she's one of the most famous persons now in the world. When you say climate change, they say Greta Thunberg. So she was 12 years old and became a citizen diplomat. Thought she should take responsibility for the destruction of the earth. And she was right. Because if she's 12, she wants to live in a world that is not destroyed. And today she's very famous. So that's an example of what we mean by citizen diplomacy.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to take some time and acknowledge the Vice Chancellor of the University of Guyana. Dr. Mohammed.
Good to see you, Vice Chancellor.
Same to you. Thank you.
Vice Chancellor is a friend of my university, too. I'm a friend of her university. Because she and the former Vice Chancellor made both Floyd and I education ambassadors, right?
Yes.
And she came down to DC and we supported an event to raise money for UG, right?
Yes, good.
So she is a special, special friend of ours.
Thank you.
Doc, Vice Chancellor, I hope you let me do a course on citizen diplomacy because we've transformed this into a real academic course. So I'm really glad you're here and I'm glad that the head of TAMES is, UG is also here. So now I want to introduce a special friend of mine. Floyd likes poetry, I like poetry, we like to read. And this lady is a very special lady. Her name is Carleen Gilcare. But what she is going to read to us is what I feel very strong. I've written an article and anybody could read it in the internet. It's called Guyana, My First Love. So Carleen, come tell us about Guyana, Our First Love.
Good evening. It is indeed an honor because this, as the poem goes, my heart's cry, and it truly reflects how I feel about Guyana. This is, as Paul says, his first love. Guyana is my first love. And I always, like to defend my country from a very young child. People say we poor and we this and we that and all these things, and I'm like, no, this is a wonderful place, So this is one of my pieces. I've been using my gift to try to let people get as patriotic about Guyana as I am. And this was called My Heart's Cry. I have here a map. For those of you who can see the colors and so on. When you look at the map, her shape is like a woman, rightfully like mothers. And she has given birth to sons and daughters, many of whom have traveled the world and for themselves made a name. While at home, sometimes things are perpetually the same, with everyone trying to shift the blame, falling prey to universal evil like pawns in a game of intellectual chess, while we remain in a mess and many people are in so much distress, living mediocre lives. I cry out to you, Guyanese, arise. You see, why are we waiting for the politicians to tell us how to live our lives when we all have it within us to reach for the skies? None of us really need someone to tell us what is the right thing to do because we all came here with that purpose built inside of you. You see, Father God put a piece of himself in you and then sent you to earth, so there's a unique destiny designed even before your mother gave birth. Never mind it seemed to have been intercepted by life's numerous tragedies and now appear corrupted. Don't be discouraged if your life is not what you wanted. That dream is still possible as long as hope remains undaunted. Oh, Guyana, beautiful land of the free, one people, one nation with one destiny. But yet some people are wondering, what about me? Why do I still feel bound? Maybe goat bite me. Maybe I need to go bathe in blue or go down by the sea. And you know why? Because we are free, but not many realize that we're still crawling on the ground when we've got the sky as the limit. We've got natural rich farmlands that produce the highest grades of rice, but yet we act as if world economics has put us in a vice. Right here go the best, juiciest, sweetest sugar cane. And if we'll only head back to the land, we see there's so much more to gain. Or a vast variety of timber, bauxite, granite, oil and gold, all waiting for real Guyanese to invest so that they can unfold. We were never poor. Don't you dare believe the lies. I beg of you, let the real Guyanese arise. You see, we the people must understand that we are the true wealth of the land. There is greatness inside of you. With God's help, there's no limit to what you can do. Just find out what it is that you came here to do and use it to build this beautiful land of ours instead of just giving it to other nations to retain their powers of control, while we take a backseat role, watching as the weight of bad leadership take its toll, watching and waiting, anxiously doing nothing and then saying, oh God, help, we send somebody to fix the country. and we don't even hear his reply because we're too busy to cry. He's saying, I already sent somebody. Just look in the mirror and you will see. The people to fix this country done the hair already. Because if I fix me and you fix you, then we fix we, and ultimately we fix the whole damn country. So rise up and stand tall like the Panorama Mountains, and let your glory flow like a white water fountain. Rise up and soar like the majestic harpy eagle. Every guidance can be strong. You don't have to be feeble. Just do your part, whether it appears great or small. One Dotilas build united, we cannot fall. We need the garbage collector as much as we need the finance minister, the postman, the doctor, the lawyer, and the nursery school teacher. We all form a part of the collage of this beautiful, blessed land. So let's join together and build it, working hand in hand. You see, together we are unstoppable, a strong nation headed for the skies. It is my heart's deepest cry to watch Guyana rise, graduates. Rise.
Might have read about her. Her name is Mala Yousafzai, but she's more known as Malala. This was a young lady who at 15 was shot in the head in a country that's predominantly Muslim because of the problems they have of dealing with the opposite sex, and they didn't want women to be educated. And can you imagine that she now won the Nobel Peace Prize because of the work she did? In spite of the fact that she could have died and they operated on her, she acquired that consciousness to fight for the education of young girls and women across the world. So it goes to show that you do not have to be, as Colleen said correctly, and I believe in the power of the grassroots. I believe I had a mentor, I had about 5, but I had one. He's an Argentinian labor leader, Emilio Maspero. And he always taught us and told us that only the people can save the people. Solo el pueblo salva el pueblo. I'm glad to see you here, my brother. I was wondering where you were. So the important thing about this citizen diplomacy is empowerment. Teachers are so crucial, and all of you, I'm so happy that I had the experience and the privilege to work with all you teachers for the last year. You know what happens in the community. In the academic world, we call you the organic intellectuals. When a child comes to the school, you know if they're hungry, so there's a problem in the house, nobody has a job, or there's some abuse of some kind. You know everything that is going on. And you all are so important for the development of the country. And you know, I'm a labor guy, so I'll say a word, your salary should be increased about 7 times. But I'm not in the country to advocate for you, but you all have to advocate for yourself and make the powers that be understand the value that you have. So I'm so happy that we are going to graduate tonight, so many teachers. Now, I got a surprise today because Dr. Kamla Deonat, who is a good friend of mine and the Vice President of the Rhyming Institute, she's from Howard University, she's a microbiologist, and she keeps telling me she's not going to come because of this, that, and the other. And suddenly she gave me a surprise and turn up. And so Dr. Judith Adams, who is a good friend of mine, say they're not coming because of this, that, and the other, but they wanted to surprise me. So I'm really surprised, Kamla, that you're here. So since you were supposed to have been the MC of this event, I'm going to ask you to share a few words with us. Dr. Kamla and I collaborate. She's at Howard University, I am at the University of District of Columbia, but we do a program where we support each other called Washington Model Organization of American States. We train young people to be diplomats and to go at the Organization of American States to represent countries and to play the role of ambassadors. You represented Guyana the last time, and our university represented Belize. But we have represented, each university in the Americas as an opportunity to represent the country. And so they go there and they represent that. But we have to do a lot of training with him. And she and I collaborate and work. So Dr. Deonat, would you just share a few words with us?
Good evening, everyone. I think I've met quite a few of you during one of my presentations for the class. I did a presentation on COVID. I want to thank you all for being here. I think your presence here speaks to your commitment, your tenacity. This was a very long year because of COVID and many other reasons. I know you had challenges with the technology sometimes, and I just want to thank you all for being here. Thank you.
That's the shortest speech I've Ambassador. So there are a lot of people in this audience, and I would like to ask some of them to introduce themselves. Mr. Collins, would you please introduce yourself up there, who you are, your organization?
Thank you, Paul. I'm Frederick Collins. I am the current president of PIGI, or the local affiliate of Transparency International. And that's why I'm here. But I want to tell you that I see all these teachers being mentioned, and I want to tell you that I consider myself, having gone to several professions, first of all, a teacher. I dream sometimes I'm in the classroom. I just thought I'd mention that.
Thank you. I'm trying to introduce yourself. Yeah.
My name is Jeremy Barker. I'll tell you guys a funny story quickly. I met Paul. We were coming in. So I am a proud alumni of Howard University as well, President's College graduate. And so 22 years ago I migrated and I actually attended Howard University. Dr. Campbell and I studied in our microbiology labs together. So it's funny when Paul mentioned that she was going to be here. I got really excited and told him that I know her very well. I know her commitment to learning. But a little bit about me, as I said, I'm a former President's College student. So 20 years ago, I probably would have been in your shoes, and I met Paul on a delayed flight from American Airlines, and our energies and synergy just connected, and ever since I've been working with him. I told him unofficially I'm just jumping in head first or whatever he needs from me. He asked me to change my flight to stay here, and so I actually changed my flight because I believed in so much of what you're doing with global citizenship initiative, and so it's something that I'm very passionate about. I just learned about it, but I just want to congratulate you guys as well because he shared with me all the obstacles and challenges he had and the mandate that he's passing on for you. So I just want to tell you guys congratulations, and we're very proud of you for what you did.
Thank you.
I'm the head of the Diaspora Unit that is stationed within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. And as Professor mentioned, we've met each other just about a year, and I've also had the distinct pleasure of meeting Dr. Floyd Haynes, who've given us tremendous support and guidance in diaspora engagement. And what we endeavor to do is really to bridge the divide between Guyanese residents overseas and all the countries around the world and those that are here in Guyana, because we realize the vast potential and the resources and skills that our Guyanese have acquired, like our colleague over there, and how we can amass that, mobilize them to bring them back to Guyana so they can invest their resources and their expertise to make Guyana a better place, and also to help us to realize our national development priorities. So I'm excited to see how all of this is playing out from time to time, vis-a-vis in this sort of graduation, what it's doing at the grassroots level. We're very proud of Professor Haynes, and we want to congratulate you, and we're looking forward to working with both of you in the future in all of your endeavors. And this is one of our new recruits to the unit. This is one of my staff. This is Marcy Parker. She's actually our communications officer, and she's the one who's going to be putting a lot of information out into the diaspora as well as Guyanese to help each other to understand what is it that the diaspora would do for Guyana, and then to help Guyanese, give their information to the diaspora to see how we can work together to make a lot of things happen.
Well, thank you very much.
The great-great-granddaughter of Dick Downer, who arrived in this country 153 years ago in this month of June. And although I am currently living or residing, I should say, in New York, I feel very strongly in giving back to Guyana. In fact, in 2008 and 2009, I came back and served as the Chief Schools Welfare Officer of Guyana. Then I went back to teaching. But recently, from 2016, I have a counseling background. I'm an ordained Baptist minister as well. So I'm an educator. So I always like to support my country. And in 2016, when we had a high incident of suicide in Guyana, I took time off and I went to the rural areas to help out. To I did like an ecumen. I reached out to not just Christians, but community leaders. And yesterday, I'm on vacation, so I planned to come and give some of my time to the riverine areas. So I was in Vijanou helping the school's welfare officers. I was supposed to be in a school, and to counsel, but they had so many parents and students there that needed help. So I just joined them and spent 4 hours just helping out. And so later in July, I'll be in Wakenham and Tushin doing some workshops and counseling. So that's it.
Schools. You know, in America, they really mean more than counselors. You saw what happened, they killed all the children the other day, right? If you go to the synagogue, they kill you. You go to the temple, they kill you. You go to the church, they kill you. You're in the metro, they shoot you. You're in the school, they shoot you. You're on the age, they shoot you. Over age, they shoot you. America is upside down. I teach a lot of courses. I teach criminal justice studies, believe it or not, the theory of crime, the history of crime, comparative criminal justice system, research in criminology. I'm very, very aware of it. It's a very, very serious problem, but not only in America, all across the world. As a matter of fact, our Minister of Home Affairs is a very good friend of mine, Rocha. We have a lot of problem here too with crime, and you all are aware of it. So, as Ambassador said, we have multifaceted problems, and that is why we have to think how we could conceptualize in order that you could hit one board, hit many boards with one stone. But that requires a lot of thinking, a lot of cooperation, coordination, and coherence.
Okay. I,
My mother, Larissa Skip, Tamika Pereira, and Mira Simon, Parvati Raghudandan,
Harleen Gilker, Leon King.
Sarah Manuel, Anna Jabber, Naomi Richardson, Lavina Sultanan,
Josiah Paul Studio, Romy Charlotte,
Vanessa B.
Afran Saeed, Jagdish Tashira,
do solemnly pledge my commitment
Do solemnly pledge my commitment
as a cultural public citizen diplomat
as a cultural public citizen diplomat
to the continuous construction of a better world.
to the continuous construction of a better world.
I will ensure that I be permanently informed, identify the burning issues of our time, and ask the relevant questions with a view to propose and lobby for the most effective and humane public policies locally, nationally, and globally. I pledge to work in a concerted effort with other citizens to discover more about our heritage and common values as a human race and build local global friendships and work for peace and justice for all.
Thank you. Congratulations. The Raima Institute hereby certifies that Noressa Skip completed training in a course on cultural public citizen diplomacy and is therefore certified as a cultural public citizen diplomat given this Saturday, June the 25th, 2022, signed by Floyd Haynes, President, Dr. Kamala Deonot, Vice President, and Paul Tennessee, Director. I am going to call on Ms. Keith to do the vote of thanks, and then we'll go for this.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Larissa Skeet, and I'll be doing the vote of thanks for you. Master of Ceremony, President Floyd Haynes of the Roraima Institute, fellow participants of the Public Citizen Diplomat course, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, a blessed evening to all. On behalf of my fellow participants, this evening who have taken the oath as citizens diplomats, we would like to express our gratitude to the Roraima Institute and to the professors who conducted classes and workshops. Special thanks to the following lecturers who made our classes exciting, fun, informative, and most of all, educating. Professor Floyd Haynes, Professor Paul Tennessee and Course Director, Professor Kamala Deonot, Professor Marjorie Cars, Professor Selvon Waldron, Professor Andre Dukia, Dr. Vedawati Ram, Attorney and Civil Rights Expert Marcia Johnson Blanco, and Ambassador Dennis Haynes, retired. We also like to thank all the guests for being here. Thank you, Ms. Fasila Salim, who ensured she topped up our internet to ensure our participation. Special thanks also to Afran Sahid and Josiah Paul Sudial for organizing transportation for us to get here today. Finally, thanks to the management and staff of Car Lodge for giving us the opportunity to host our graduation ceremony here at your lovely venue. Please join us for dinner. God bless.
Thanks very much all. Thanks for being here, and let's partake.